Hello. It's about that time. It's another episode of Around the Reef. Let's go. I think we're episode 5 now. So let's go. It's a good time. We got some exciting news for Around the Reef. We got a logo. Let's go. It's cool. I like the logo. It's cool. You're gonna be seeing a lot of that thing. So it's go figure, reef themed. But it just says Around the Reef with like a microphone, and then it's got like some fish swimming in the background, kind of like this. So no, it's awesome. I'm excited. Around the Reef, baby, come on. So let's see. Yesterday we had my homie Ty come through. We knocked out a pod on the last episode. That was fun. I want to do a lot of guest stuff. A lot of, it's cool when I just talk, but I think people also want to see a back and forth. They just don't want me on my soapbox here. But that was fun. We talked about some good stuff yesterday. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of Ty. And I know he was saying he wanted to do his own podcast, which is awesome. He knows a lot about fitness, and he can really get in depth on those topics. So everybody's interested in some fitness stuff. So he's going to be getting on that too. But So if you want to learn more about working out and stuff, you can go watch his podcast. But if you're just trying to fuck around, have a good time, I don't know, Around the Reef, this is what we do. And I am creating an Instagram page just for this podcast. So I'll be clipping up shorter clips of the longer form podcasts, so we can post those on Instagram and TikTok and maybe Facebook or something. I don't know, but the shorter clips. I guess TikTok, I don't know, I'm not an expert on TikTok, but it's 30-second clips, right? And shorter than that. So we'll be doing that. And then YouTube, 5-minute clips on a particular topic. So we'll be doing those things. And then I'm messing around with just figuring out how to make this podcast as good as it can be. So we're making little changes, little improvements, and with some consistency and some hard work, we're making it happen. So thank you to everybody that listens. I really appreciate this. It's been really fun. I haven't been doing this too long, but it's been fun. And I'm glad I kind of started doing this thing. So thank you guys very much for listening. Here's a question. How do you guys listen, or when do you listen to podcasts? For me, I like going on long walks and stuff, and I like throwing in a longer form podcast. Then also when you can't sleep, you ever just be laying in bed, and I don't like just sitting there in the dark as I'm getting tired, I don't like there sitting in silence. So I sometimes I'll throw in a little podcast or something. So I think that's what these things are good for, really. But yeah, podcasts are cool. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay, on episode 5 of Around the Reef. So I went to Oregon State, right? And Oregon State, because I live in Newport Beach now, but there's not a lot of people that went to Oregon State that live here. Most people that live here, they went to USC, UCLA, whatever. So long story short is I'm back on being the minority of which teams I'm rooting for, because when college football comes on, practically nobody's going for Oregon State except for me. So I gotta really, it's a dogfight out there. I'm really usually the one that everybody hates because I'm rooting for the team that nobody else is. So they were playing Arizona yesterday, and U of A actually has a very large contingent. A lot of kids that go to U of A are from this area. So, frankly, I was outnumbered yesterday at the bar. I was outnumbered, and man, we should have won that game, man. What the hell? I am so disappointed in the Beavers. I am disappointed. What the fuck, man? We had that game, or at least it. So what happened was we lost by 3 points, right? Well, our coach decided to. So we had a chance to score those 3 points. Our coach decides, though, instead of kicking a field goal, he runs it. We call a fake field goal, and the kicker tries to run the ball. Keep in mind, the kicker is the least athletic player on the field by far. Every other position, you have to be extremely athletic and fast and strong to play football. It's the reason I never played. The kicker has a different skill set. Their job is to kick the ball through the uprights. That's their job. They're really not good for anything else. They don't have to be. Except in this alternate reality where our coach is like, let's catch these guys off guard and we'll run the ball with the kicker. And of course he didn't get it. Of course. He gets stuffed. And we end up losing by 3. And our season's over, basically. I mean, there's 1 trillion 2-loss teams now. It doesn't fucking matter. I lost like 90% of my excitement, honestly, after we lost that game. I mean, we're gonna torpedo in the rankings, and who gives a shit anymore? Which is sad because we actually had a good squad. The coach fucked us on that. So I like our coach, man. He kind of turned our program around, so you can't really be too. You can't be like, fire him, because he's like 90% of the reason we're acceptable now, but it's just tough, man. Terrible play call. We ended up losing the game, so, and then U of A, though, shout out to U of A, like, that's a cool school, too. I mentioned on a previous podcast that I almost went to U of A. It came down to Oregon State and U of A. So, if I sometimes root for U of A, like probably like second most, like of all the schools other than Oregon State, I tend to root for U of A. So good for them, man. It's Sunday today. I was watching, or I barely watched. I'll watch highlights of football, but I noticed there's quarterback Kirk Cousins for the Minnesota Vikings. Apparently he just tore his Achilles. That sucks. You know, tearing your Achilles, it's like probably like the worst injury, for an athlete. I mean, for baseball, if you tear your rotator cuff in your shoulder, that sucks too. But tearing your Achilles, man, that would fucking suck. So hopefully he can have a speedy recovery, but I have no idea who their backup is. So, and they're a good squad, but that's just too bad, man. You hate to see it. I remember when Kobe tore his Achilles. That was sad. So, I don't know. Achilles, that sucks. So, okay. I think that's like the sports talk over, I think, for today. I think tomorrow we'll have more to talk about. We'll recap what happened in NFL. But let's transition into something else. Two things. How about let's talk some real estate? I also am a real estate agent, by the way. I have my real estate license, so I am licensed to talk about this shit. Why is everything so expensive? Like, let's get into it. Why? Why is it so expensive? it's here, like here in Newport Beach, it's a interesting place because everybody wants to live here. People want to live where it's good weather. They don't want to live where it's too hot or too cold or in the middle of nowhere. So basically, and then with like climate change and stuff, it's basically like shrinking the area of habitable space that humans want to live in. You know, and there's more humans now, so it's like more humans, less livable space. So what happens? That drives the price through the roof. And it's just a different economic landscape. It's different than it was like our parents. Our parents, I feel like housing was way more affordable. It wasn't a big deal. I think, if you wanted to buy a house, like back in the 70s, you only needed to save, you only needed to rent really for like a year, or something like that. A house was basically a year's worth of saving. But now, you have to save 10 years to get a house. And then frankly, it's probably not the smartest investment if you're going to save for 10 years. So it's just tough, man. And I push back on like when the older generation, they give the younger, like millennials and Gen Z, they give us shit because they're like, you guys you don't want to save. It's like, well, yo, like, we're just gonna, the idea that you would work your whole life and save and save and save, and then when you're 65, you take out that money and then you can live the rest of your life, that shit sucks. Okay, that shit fucking sucks. Like I don't want to wait till I'm 65 to enjoy my money. What am I gonna do when I'm 65? I'm not gonna want to go on a trip with all this money. Yeah, I might have $1 million, but I'm too fucking old to enjoy it. So that shit sucks. That whole idea is outdated. I don't know. Obviously, like back in the day, there's a lot of people that do that. A lot of older people and old souls do that nowadays. But I'm just saying, I think the younger generation is kind of starting to believe, like, or I guess reevaluating how we look at money and how, like, what we value. Like, do we value home ownership, or do you value like having experiences when you're young? You know, when you're still young enough to enjoy life, right? I mean, look, my parents are older. My dad's 68. He doesn't want to fucking travel, and I don't blame him. When I'm 68, I probably won't want to travel either. So with that being said, why would you like wait your whole life to hypothetically have the money to travel when you're 68? You won't want to fucking leave your place. You know, go travel in your 20s when you're still young and not jaded. Obviously, just before you turn 65, don't wait to 65 to start having fun. If you take anything from this, don't wait that long. Life is too short to not spend your money on experiences. I think that's the best, frankly. And then I also have, like, you know, there's some things you should do with your money, like most people I know my age that don't do. Like, if you are anybody, this applies to anybody, but especially if you're young, there's some retirement savings accounts that you should be participating in financially and mathematically. There's called a Roth IRA account. Let me dish in on some white collar shit. You want to open up a Roth IRA. It's a little different than a regular stock account. A Roth IRA is a special account that you can only contribute a certain amount of money to. I think it's like $6,500 per year, but you do that and the money does not get taxed when you pull it out. So, like, if you were to buy a bunch of stock right now, not in a Roth IRA, it grows, and then you pull out that money, you're going to get taxed on the amount when you pull it out, and it's going to be a lot. It's taxed at the capital gain, which is a lower tax rate, but it's still taxed. Whereas if you had your money in a Roth IRA account, all that money when you pull it out, it doesn't get taxed. So it can be a huge difference. And the only caveat with the Roth IRA is that you can't pull it out until you're older, like until you're 65. Unfortunately, there's also other circumstances like a health emergency. I think also for like education, like your kids' college, and there might be like another reason, another like caveat where you can pull out your money. But essentially, it's supposed to be a retirement account. But it's just that little account can make the difference between you retiring with dignity or you retiring with nothing and struggling at the end of life, which is no bueno, and it's a burden on your whole family. So I would there's really no reason why you shouldn't have a Roth IRA right now. And you don't need to like, the thing about money is like, you do the heavy lifting when you're young, and then it snowballs, or it has a compounding interest effect. So it makes more sense to invest when you're young, like when you're 20 or fucking younger than that, and have your money grow your whole life, versus like you wait till you're 40 to start investing. Well, by the time you're 60 and you don't want to work and you want to live off your investment, you're only going to have like hypothetically like 20 years in the market when you could have had 40 years in the market. Big difference. It's a huge difference. And most of your earnings come as you've made more money. So if you invested, $1,000 next year, it's only going to be worth $1,100. Whereas if you invested $1 million, the next year it's going to be worth 1.1 million. Do you see how like bigger money grows faster? Okay, that's how money works. Look, you don't need to understand it. All you need to get is that you invest when you're young. Do it now. You got a couple extra grand or whatever amount, doesn't really matter. You can invest $200. That's the first money that I took when I started investing, I used to be a ride operator at a water park. I used to shove fat people down a water slide, and I was getting paid minimum, but it was a summer job. I think I was like 19 or something like that. And I remember I got my paycheck and it was like $200. But when you're 19, $200 is like, that's a chunk. That's a chunk of money right there. So, but I remember I always thought it'd be cool to not spend it right there. Because I was so young. I was like, I want to invest this. And then when I'm old and I pull this money out, it'll be worth that $200 when I'm 19. When I'm 65, that'll be worth 20 grand. And I'll be like, when I pull it out, I'll be like, man, like, I remember earning this. And it's funny that I went my whole life and now I'm, it grew, and maybe I can buy something cooler in 40 years than $200 back then, So I always thought it was cool. But my point is that you can start investing with any dollar amount. $200. The next $200 you make, go invest in a Roth IRA and forget about it. Forget about that. And it provides you some security. Everybody needs a little financial security. And I would recommend maxing out the Roth IRA at $6,500. If you were lucky enough to have more than $6,500 to invest, I would recommend you buy some stock. It's not a great time for stock right now, to be completely honest, but I think everybody should own some stock. regardless of if it's a good time. I think you need to get in the stock market. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but the stock market is the economy. Like that's where wealthy people have their money. The majority of wealth in the world is in stocks. Stocks are like little pieces of business, a little piece of the business. You own a stock of Apple, you own a little bit of Apple. Every iPhone sold, you own a little bit of that. And, you know, there's graphs that show stocks appreciate faster. So you definitely want to participate in these things. And most kids that I know, they don't own any stock. They don't own it. They don't own shit. They rent. They don't have any stock. They don't have any bonds. I mean, they don't own any appreciating assets. Appreciating assets are assets that go up in value over time. Whereas, like, if you own a car, every time you drive that thing, it goes down in value a little bit. Every time if you buy a new car and you drive it off the lot, you just burn like a third of the car's value. So that's a depreciating asset. You know, you don't want depreciate. You want to own some appreciating assets, and everybody's financial situation is different. But I would encourage you to try to own more appreciating assets and less depreciating assets. One last thing about money, I guess, is business. You know, I think the only way to really build wealth in this country is owning your own business. I think you have to have some sort of business that you do, you know, and then of course, I recommend reading that book. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it basically breaks all money or all jobs, I guess, into 4 quadrants. So it's like employee, specialist, business owner, and then investor. So it's like this whole side is business owner and investor, and this side is like employee and specialist. Specialist is like a doctor. Employee is like you work at McDonald's and you have a boss. Business owner is like you own a coffee shop. Investor is like you own bonds and you live off bond yields. Now is a great time for bonds, by the way. I would almost recommend you get into bonds before you get into, but it all depends. But bonds are kicking ass right now. But I would encourage, if you want to build some wealth, try to get over to this side, you know, and that's what the whole book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki talks about, is like his poor dad was always on this side. And even though he was highly educated and by all means smart, he never had a ton of money. I mean, it was like every dollar that he made, he just spent it, and he could never move up in life because it's called lifestyle creep. And everyone does this. You start making more money, what's the first thing you do? You increase your lifestyle. You get a nicer apartment, nicer car, but you're not building any wealth. Wealth is how much money you can keep. It's not about how much you make, really. It's about how much of that you keep. So, yeah, I want to talk more about some financial stuff because I feel like a lot of people, they want to know about finance and about like how, you know, what they should do. But there's a lot of like snake oil salesmen. There's a lot of people that don't have any money. They have no fucking clue what they're talking about. You know, so they get led astray. They start buying Bitcoin. By the way, don't buy Bitcoin. Okay, like that's stupid. Listen to me. Don't do that. If you just listen to me, honestly, you probably do all right. You know, I know a thing or two about money. Just saying. Like, I'm actually not a bad one to listen to about money. So I will definitely be talking about that more. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. I'm gonna wrap up episode 5 of Around the Reef. I also want to say one last thing that so I got a logo, right? I'm gonna be making some hats and maybe a T-shirt with the logo. So I want everybody to be ready for that because that's going to be fun. The logo is dope, so I'm going to make it into some cool hats, and they're going to look good. So it's my dream one day to maybe see a kid walking down the street wearing my hat. That's going to be insane, and I'm not going to stop until one day I see that. So maybe we can make my dream come true one day. So thank you guys for listening. You were listening to Around the Reef.